Whatever you do not dare skip this interview. This one has been a long time coming with my very good friend, Alex Farling from Empath MSP. Alex has this superpower of not only creating relationships. Everybody in the industry seems to know Alex from at least second degree connection, but pretty much a first degree connection. But he has so many relationships and he maintains good quality, meaningful relationships with so many people. It's a real gift that he has, but it's also a skill that he's developed. So in this interview, he talks all about how to make that happen with your existing customers, make sure those relationships maintain, even as you gain new customers quickly, which can be a real challenge. And all of that awesome dialogue is layered into the conversation of decommoditizing your business. This one is a doozy, and it can make you money. Let's get into it. Alex Farling. Alec, thanks so much for being here, man.
Absolutely. Love hanging out with you, man.
Yeah, we got to hang out a little bit just last week. I don't know when this is going out, but we were just at ScaleCon 24, the inaugural conference from Tech Tribe and MSP Camp. How was that conference for you?
I'm really glad we get to call it the inaugural and that we're already confident it'll be coming back. It was a really good show for Empath. You know, we talk about shows like Ride a Boom that are all technical for the technical people. I think this is the first time ever we've had a real sales and marketing event that helps sales and marketing people in this community. And they're just, I don't want to say they're the forgotten man, but they really are. If you look at this industry, like the men and women that do sales in this industry don't get the kind of support that the engineers do. All the tools are built for the engineers. You know, all the branding and everything we do is built for engineers. There are 10 times more resources for engineers than there are for the sales and marketing folks. And you could see it in the room. You could hear it in the room. People were super happy to be having some of these conversations and finding something they could take home and apply to their business right away.
Yeah. And especially, it's futile to compare a sales job and a technical job because they're just so fundamentally different. But it's such a hard job. Selling is hard. There's a reason that salespeople can make so much money because it's hard. And selling managed services is super hard. And the amount of how much we rely on those people being successful, you would think that that this kind of stuff wouldn't take until 2024 to have one of these conferences.
You know, we rely on them to be successful. And then I've been having this conversation a lot lately. We abdicate the entire department to this new guy who we hired, who the only thing he's ever actually sold is me on the fact that he can make my managed services business successful. And instead of delegating sales and holding someone accountable and putting them in a system and making them successful, we just abdicate it and push it out the door and go, best of luck, buddy. Let me know how it works out. And we haven't given them marketing, and we haven't given them lead generation, and we haven't given them even the tools to understand what makes our MSP different from everybody else. And let's be honest, this is a business where everybody starts to look like a commodity really, really quickly. Credit card in your pocket, everybody can buy the same tools. We all promise that we only hire the best people, that we respond the fastest, that we have the smartest people and the best tools. And, you know, we all just start to sound like that drone.
And frankly, the reason that a lot of us are treated like commodities is because a lot of MSPs are commodities.
Behave like a commodity? Yeah, 100%. 100%. And we're having this talk a lot. I run a live course in Empath where it's just basically open door for the sales and marketing folks. And we talk a lot about how do you establish yourself as being different from the next guy? And how do I build a little more know, like, and trust than the next guy? Because unfortunately, on paper, we all look the same. And you could see it in the vendor hall at ScaleCon. Here's a vendor that promises to create all your marketing material for you. Here's a vendor who promises to create your website for you. Here's a vendor who promises to create X, Y, or Z for you. And the prices they're not charging you $20,000 for a website, which is what it could cost to get it done and done right. You know, $10,000, $20,000. They're charging you $900 for a website. They're not charging you the salary of a $180,000 marketing manager to manage your marketing. They're charging you $699. And so you're getting a commodity service that looks just like everyone else. And you have to be very careful that when you buy those products, you still continue to differentiate yourself. And I tell MSPs all the time, like, the only thing that differentiates you is you. What is the thing about your relationship with your customers that makes you special? Well, we don't really have relationships with them. They just call and we fix their things and they go away and they should be happy. Okay, you're a commodity. Congratulations. That's how you get there.
So let's unpack that a little bit. Give me some more to the MSP listening who's going, oh crap, I didn't realize, or maybe they know, they're like, they feel themselves being pulled into the riptide, right? What does that actually mean to build a relationship around yourself? How do you de-commoditize?
For starters, let's unpack what it means to be a commodity, right? What it means to be a commodity is my customer doesn't really value my input. They make decisions without me. They buy from people who aren't me and then deliver products to me and go, hey, I bought this stuff. Go ahead and deploy it for me. And what this means is it's a race to the bottom, right? Yeah. You're going to find yourself constantly having price discussions with your customer because you didn't establish value. You didn't deliver value. So the alternative is to start to build a story that talks about Mr. Prospect or Mr. Customer, what it feels like to do business with me is, and here's my specific to my MSP process. And, my MSP was called Delaware Microcomputer. We had the Delaware Micro way. And we knew what that felt like. And that was, it was part of what we built Lifecycle Insights to solve for, because building budgets and having strategic conversations with our customers was hard. But once the tools are built, it gets easier. That's not the point. The point is we knew the thing that differentiated us. And what differentiated us was we would sit down with you and we'd collect up all your finance invoices or your technology invoices, and we'd put together a real budget forecast for you. And we'd have a conversation around it, because 5 years before that, we didn't do that stuff. And I pissed off my customers when I went, knock, knock, I need money. And so, we started to strategically forecast and plan things out in advance. And that was the thing that we were able to walk in the door and say, what's going to set me apart from my competitor is that I do this and nobody else in town does. And here's what my flow chart looks like. Here's what my plan looks like. Here's what the steps you're going to go through in the first 90 days with me. And then here's what's going to happen every month or 3 months or 6 months after. If you can tell a customer that, instead of just saying, we'll show up the fastest, we are the best at all the bestest things. If you can actually show them, and if it really is your superpower, if it really is your secret sauce, you should be able to document it. You should be able to put it in a 2-page, 3-page outline format, right? If you took your sales process, if you took the feel good close and put it in a document, you'd be able to show it to somebody and say, hey, here's the 27 steps that we go through in our sales process. And what makes us unique is we do this every time, the same way every time. And we put in the same inputs and we get the same outputs. It's a recipe and we know how it works. And for MSPs, most of them are still selling on how I only buy SentinelOne because not CrowdStrike, or I only buy, Huntress because best thing in the, best tool on the planet. You can't tool yourself into being unique.
Yeah, let that one sink in. I mean, how many of us, or how many MSPs listening, are being swept, letting the whirlwind of the commoditization of the industry fill their calendar with things that they're now using as the excuse for why they haven't yet been able to proceduralize the way you're describing, and then articulate and communicate and then disseminate all of these actual management procedures. Like truly managing their customer is not like we have a dashboard and we get a little ping when something bad happens and then we're on it. I got news for you. You're just a really well-tooled break fix provider.
Yeah. And most MSPs are, let's be honest. Proactive support, proactive technology. As much as we all want to think we're a proactive shop, it's bullshit for 99% of us.
Yeah.
Right. We've got tools that make it easier for us to detect when something reactive needs to happen. We do a few things proactively to shore things up and make sure that they're accurate, but 95% of what we do is reactive. And then we go, but we're proactive IT because we ran a disk cleanup last night.
Yeah.
None of that makes us proactive. Proactive is stopping things before they happen. I mean, you even take a Huntress or somebody like that. They're not proactive. They're reactive. They find something and they go execute on it and they go stop it. Great. That's awesome. That's what we need. It's cool. We should be excited about that. Reactive is not a bad word. We've just decided that somehow we could use the word proactive and it would make us sound smarter and better. When in reality, what most MSPs need is a good security posture and then the ability to react faster. And when we start to look at what differentiates us, it's that proactively we've taken the time to document who we are and what makes us different. And now we can articulate it to an end customer. And most MSPs are different in some way. Most of them are completely unaware of how they're different and why they're different, and haven't bothered to sit down and figure that out. And most of us would do well to go sit with our best customers, 5, 6, 7 of them, and just say, hey, if you had to shop for IT over again, would you have picked me and why? I guarantee you your customer's not going to go, because you use CrowdStrike or SentinelOne or Huntress or whatever your tool, Blackpoint, whatever. That's not what your customer's going to answer.
No. Yeah, we have a full module on this called like building customer discovery interviews. Like sit down with your ideal customers and figure out why they're your ideal customers. The ones who behave the best, engage with you. Usually they pay you the highest per seat, and they pay on time, and they're the most pleasant, and they have the least tickets per user. Usually there's like a golden child, right?
Yeah.
And then you have a squeaky wheel who pays you the lowest per seat and is also the most difficult, doesn't pay on time. And then you need to put those two data points, because the truth is that it could just be that person, but it also could just be a fundamental, like a irreconcilable difference of needs. And they might be an ideal fit for another client or for another MSP, but you need to go in and figure out, why is this one so happy? Why is this one so unhappy?
And then go work on your marketing to make sure that your marketing is not driving to you more of those squeaky wheels, right?
Yeah.
We did an exercise at ScaleCon and had folks plot their customers and plot them according to value and complexity. And this is something that we've been doing since the Lifecycle Insights days. And you start putting these dots on a graph. And now you can see this really, really non-complex customer that doesn't require a lot of touches, spends a lot of money with me. I should protect that account. This other account over here is super complex. They call me every Monday morning because the same thing's always broken and they won't spend the money to fix it. And they don't spend enough money with me per seat. And I'm probably losing money at that customer. Yeah. Now, I need to unpack that, not just for that customer, but for how did I get that customer? And am I bringing in more customers like that? Because what I want to fill the top of my funnel with is that not really complex customer who, when I drop in my solution, they see immediate results and immediate value. Yeah. And then they stay around for a long time and they're willing to pay a high seat price for the long time. Right. And that's why we have to go back and talk to the customers who are doing that. And how do you figure out who to go talk to? Well, go look at your margins. Yeah. Go look at your customers that you're making 65, 70 points on, and go sit down with them and say, first, is everything okay? How we doing? We always forget that one. And then, if everything's all right, what made you pick us in the first place? And why do you continue to work with us? And hopefully they've been there a long time and they can say, well, we've had many opportunities to leave when you renewed the contract and raised rates and, went through the process, but we can't imagine anyone else does this one thing that's important to us as well as you do.
It's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science. It's really not.
It's like one of my mentors used to say, it's not easy, it's simple. And
man, that's so good.
Yeah. If it's easy, it's not going to work probably. When you're building a sales and marketing engine, if the thing you're doing is easy, it's probably not going to work. If it's really complicated, you probably intentionally obfuscated the path to success because you're intimidated or you're insecure about if you're even going the right direction. So you built a maze to make yourself feel busier. And that way you could feel more productive.
Well, and we all, like this is going to take time, right? If we have to go talk to 6 of our best customers or 7 of our best customers, it's going to take time. We always find other things to do with our time. I've seen r/MSP, so I understand where MSPs spend their time. If we put down the phone, if we put down LinkedIn or Facebook or Reddit or whatever we're on, and just called a customer once a day for 2 weeks, we'd have all the homework done. We'd be able to check it off the list. Yeah. If we took 2 weeks and said, every week this week, I'm going to go to lunch outside the office with a customer and I'm going to get these questions answered, it'd be done.
Yeah.
It's not done because we haven't prioritized it. And that is one of the hardest pills to swallow as an MSP owner, is that I constantly prioritize the wrong things. I constantly prioritize putting water on what's on fire instead of figuring out how to do business with more people who create less fires.
You said something a minute or two ago about the difficult customers. They won't spend money with me or they won't buy the right things. This is sort of a litmus test in general that I use. I come at it through the lens of like sales and marketing, but it's really a litmus test of your overall leadership ability. If you are bickering with your customers, you are not managing them. Like if your children are winning debates with you about what's for dinner, who is parenting who? right?
Well, that's a very open debate in 2024, but
Right.
but yeah, to your point, like there are unmanageable customers, 1,000%. That is a thing. There are people who are just bad customers. Here's a news flash: half of your customers are not bad customers.
Yeah.
And if they are, in the rarity that they are, then you're doing something to attract bad customers, because the average MSP has 1 out of 20, 1 out of 30 actual bad customers. The rest of them are mismanaged customers. The rest of them are customers that we didn't show enough attention to. We didn't actually deliver value to. We didn't speak to them in their love language, whatever that may be. What we brought into the room and told them was going to be a valuable strategic conversation was not valuable to them. Now they go, hey man, thanks, Brian. I appreciate you calling me to schedule this meeting, but everything works fine. We don't need to meet. It's all good. And we take that and go, oh, my customer loves me. Everything's fine. We don't need to meet. And we go back to work and just assume that everything's okay. And it's 100% not. What that says is that our customer doesn't see value in an engagement with us and isn't going to give us their lunchtime or a phone call or a quarterly business review, whatever you're trying to schedule. Yeah. But the problem is most often that we don't understand where our value add is for that customer. And we're focused on nerdy gadgets and widget bits. And, they're focused on how does this make me $1 when this guy, Brian, just shows up to cost me more money every time.
Yeah. I just fired my financial advisor. Well, I just restructured our relationship because we had quarterly meetings that was required to be like, in addition to their percentage of assets under management, every quarter I had a meeting with them. And it was very clear by the second one, this is a meeting for you to sell me more products. And we're thinly veiling it, thin veil of like, how's marriage going? Any vacation plans? And they're just trying to get me to talk about discretionary income, right? And then they go, yeah, well, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden I'm like, listen, I have to be candid with you. I know we already made a plan for what to do with my money. My money, until I make the next $100,000, we don't need to make any more decisions, right? So why am I meeting with you? And when they couldn't answer that question, it was like, okay, I'm going to stop paying $500 to be sold to, because that's what I was doing. And how many of our QBRs, honestly, are thinly veiled sales meetings? Now, you should be able to generate revenue from QBRs. Don't hear me saying that you shouldn't, but that's because that's the byproduct of naturally managing a client, right? Yep. But if it's obvious that you're here to go, here's the new threats, please fund me learning this new AI powered tool that I want to learn about, AKA let's make you more secure.
Yep. And that sounds like exactly how I got into being an MSP in the first place, but that's a whole story for another time. I literally went to a customer and said, hey, it's 2008 and the world is upside down and the economy's crazy. And I know you want to cut costs. If you buy me this thing called Lab Tech, I'll figure it out and I won't have to roll a truck to all your customers and I can keep your costs down. Number one, worst way ever to become a managed services provider because you don't keep anybody's costs down, right? What do they promise you? Like, we'll replace a tier 1 engineer with a tool. And they did. They replaced a tier 1 engineer with a tier 3 engineer and a tool, because now I had to write all the automations to be proactive. Back to that wonderful thing. But really, we're letting a customer dictate how we run the business, right? We saw a shiny thing. Somebody gave us an opening, and now we're going outside of the thing that is our magic, our superpower, the thing that we do amazingly well, to go play with a neat toy for a customer.
Yeah. And this is one of my beefs, my qualms with the way that the channel exists, is that so many sales conversations are being dictated by a tool vendor. Like your BCDR vendor should not be telling you how to sell managed services. That's my opinion. Okay.
You're not wrong.
Because they don't know how to sell managed services.
Right.
They know how to sell BCDR.
Sometimes they don't even know how to sell that, and they're asking an MSP to sell it for them because they're not good at go-to-market.
Yeah, that's why they all went channel, because they had no direct sales.
And if think about how they sell, they come to us and say, don't use all the nerd words, but here's 74 pages of nerd words that you can use in your sales pitch.
Yeah.
By the way, don't use nerd words in your sales pitch. This is a real problem in the channel, in that a lot of the channel vendors don't know how to sell the value of their own product. And quite frankly, if they want to be part of an all-you-can-eat managed solution, their value needs to be way different from their product. They
Right.
can't keep going to the MSP and going, well, we don't know how to differentiate or show value or get a customer to pay an extra nickel for it. So just roll it up in your package and give it away. That is the standard go-to for a vendor in the channel today. And it's wrong and it's not healthy. And that's why we're doing so much education over at Empath, because we want folks to understand, like, what does a good vendor relationship even look like? What does it look like to productize an offering and take it to market? Because it's not just, I bought a new tool, now I go sit down with my customer and try and get them to give me $3 for my $2 widget. In a lot of cases, this is, we roll together 2, 3, 4 things, products, and then guess what? We layer a managed service over it, and now we bill for it. And we bill for the service, and the products just come along. And we forget quite often that we are managed service providers, not value-added resellers. We behave a lot like value-added resellers and still try and convince ourselves that we're this new thing, this new shiny managed service provider. Or, God forbid, we bought the latest and greatest security product and somebody convinced us that adding an S would make us a managed security services provider. There's a whole other rant and hill to die on. But
I know there is. Before we get into any other waters, I want to reverse back to something that you were talking about before about bad customers. Because, I was an MSP, right? And when I joined my MSP, almost all of our customers were bad customers. And you're right. In a normal environment, you don't have that many squeaky wheels. 1 out of 20, big pain in the ass. Fire them for all I care. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
You probably, and in that same world, you probably have 5 or 6 or 7 out of 20 that need more attention that you can fix. I'm not saying there aren't things that are screwed up at every MSP, right?
Of course.
There's a large number of them that are problematic, but not bad customers.
But here's the thing I wanted to get out is, if you're an MSP and you're listening here, I remember I was talking to a guy who's in Phoenix, and the guy, within 30 seconds, I knew what this guy needed was not sales training. He needed a hug. Okay. This guy was like so embittered, so angry, so triggered the second we get on the call. And he reached out to me. This was inbound. Okay. And basically was like, well, how are you really going to do it in my city? You don't know what it's like in Phoenix. There's an MSP in every corner and blah, blah. I think it was Phoenix. If it wasn't, fill in with your city name and this is all going to be relevant. Mm-hmm. And all of his customers just like beat this guy up. And he's arguing, fighting for his life to get basic controls in there. In many cases, he's not even charging for his RMM because he's like, I have to use this. And they say no, whatever, because his everything's upside down. But what I have observed is there is this pretty noticeable sliver of the 40-something thousand MSPs in North America. They end up with the bottom clients. Mm-hmm. They are I forget the name of the fish in the fish tank. We used to call them sucker fish. You know, the ones
yes.
Yeah, that just glean all the gunk off the rocks on the bottom and that's what they eat, right? And so what they eat is the crap that fell, but through everybody else's cracks. The top fish, the stronger fish got the first grab at it. The little fish got the leftovers. And now what we have left is the people who could not fend for themselves have to sweep up the worst remains. And so you get an MSP who thinks they have a high closing rate because they can convert the lay down sales that would do business with anybody, mm-hmm. because everybody else, because they've been fired as clients probably, and or they're just difficult people. So the good MSPs all passed on them, right? And so then you end up with these bottom feeder, toxic, truly toxic clients. And then it changes your bias, and you end up in this echo chamber thinking that this is an accurate representation of the market. And then you map this bottom feeder client mentality onto the whole marketplace.
Well, and imagine the world where you answer every call for someone who treats you like that. If you had a good customer, you're probably in a terrible mood all the time. And either you're creating an antagonistic relationship with them that doesn't need to be there because you treat them just like everybody else, or they're tired of dealing with your shit because you're always in a bad mood and they've moved on.
Yeah.
There is, and I tell the story a lot. There are 2 customers that we fired at my MSP. One was because they would not come along on technology standards. The second was because he was a raging asshole and he was mean to my people. He was a debt collector, and he called and treated my people like the people that he called and asked for money every day. And that's not acceptable. So we don't do business with someone like that. The other one was just the one person who, try as we might, we could not get to come along on technology. But when I hear all these MSPs tell me, you don't know what it's like, you don't understand, you know, not in my market, whatever. I was in Dover, Delaware, 40,000 human beings in Dover, Delaware, and 10,000 of them are attached to the Dover Air Force Base, and another 5,000 work for the state. Not a big market.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped giving away local admin passwords in 2004. I didn't have Threat Locker. I didn't have Auto Elevate. I didn't have all the fancy tools.
Mm-hmm.
I took away admin passwords because you didn't need them and you didn't deserve them and you would do something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a debate. And so to hear people say that it's all bad customers is telling of the human who's given up. And I hate that for them because it really is because they've given up. The reality is if we treat the customer right, if we have the right conversations with the customers, if we set the right expectations up front, customers will come along. But something also changes in us when we get a little better and we grow a little more mature and we change. And I remember customers coming to me and saying, hey, you're talking about security a whole lot more than you used to. And I feel like maybe you've outgrown me. And I think that's a telling point for MSPs. And I ask the folks who are sitting here on this, listening to this, has a customer ever said, I feel like you've outgrown me? You know, you used to be a tiny little shop and now you've got 7, 8, 15, 25 people, however many. And maybe you're just too mature for my business. It's your customer telling you that you're pushing the boundaries of what they're willing to pay for. You're not quite delivering the value that they had when you knew everybody in their building and you'd come by with coffee and you didn't have a lot of customers. So you pampered them a little bit too much. Right. But what they're telling you from that is, Alex, we don't feel like we get the same relationship back from you that we got when you were smaller. And we're missing something. And as a hint, it's not them telling you it's time for me to go find a new provider. It's them telling you it's time for you to fix our relationship.
Yeah.
And when we do that, those customers stay and they remain happy. But we have to put our guard down and go sit down with them and say, you know what? It sounds like I failed you. Please tell me what I needed to do better or different. What am I not giving you today that I did in the past that makes you feel like you're not getting the value? And if they say, well, you wanted me to buy $2 widgets, now we understand we haven't shown them the value in the $2 widget. We haven't shown them that we haven't led them on the security journey to understand how much things have changed since they became our customer 20 years ago. And that requires handholding. It requires time. It requires touches. And we can't just roll in with a quote and go, hey, you need my new shiny gadget that some slick salesman sold me at ScaleCon, right?
Yeah.
And sure, as a vendor, like I've sat on the other side of the table selling you stuff at ScaleCon, right? But at the end of the day, MSPs have to be smart enough to know every gadget that they buy, they have to have a real conversation with their customer about if it's going to change the way that they price things.
Wow. So, I mean, here's what I'm hearing from you is, the path towards decommoditizing your MSP. There's an internal journey and an external journey. Mm-hmm. The internal journey is the one that, frankly, nobody wants to talk about. And a lot of people are just uncomfortable talking about, but you have to grow as a person. You have to become more empathetic. You have to become a better listener. You have to become more humble, even if you're already those things. Like, there is no binary switch in your heart where you go from not empathetic to empathetic. All of this is this perpetual journey, right?
Yep.
But you have to grow in these areas. You have to be coachable from your clients. You have to listen really hard. You have to genuinely care. You also have to be you always have to be in IT. You have to be learning all the time. Otherwise, you can't make it in IT if you don't love learning, right? Nowadays, you're going to age out in 3 years if you stop learning, right?
Yeah.
And that's the part that is when people want to become a CEO, they think they're going to get control over their lifestyle, but they also think they're no longer going to have to be held accountable. Nobody would say it that way, but that's what I've observed is they think now that I'm the boss, everybody's going to laugh at all my jokes. My spouse is going to find me more attractive. I'm going to buy whatever I want, whenever I want, because I'll have total financial autonomy. But in reality, real leaders have to be more transparent, more with above reproach, at all times. You know what I mean? Like,
one, there's another side to that. Like, there's the EQ side of that. Like, your customer doesn't come to you and say, you're not giving me attention and I don't think you love me anymore. They say things like, you've grown up. Congratulations. I'm really proud of where you've taken your business since you were a 2-man shop and I was your 14th customer. But I think you've outgrown me. And that feels off-putting. We're going, we are kind of fancy now, and you don't like to buy my stuff. Yeah, you're probably the problem. Instead of,
you might think it's a compliment when you hear it the first time. You might think,
and I did the first time. I 100% did the first time. And so there's this level of EQ that has to go off and put the IQ in the back seat and say, my customer's trying to tell me something, and I need to make sure I heard what they actually said. Because it's very easy to go, I'm 27 years old. I'm the CEO of my 5-person business. And now I'm big and important and fancy, and people should do what I say. And in reality, as the CEO, you're a leader. And leader implies that people follow you willingly, and that you have created something that they want to march towards. They don't call CEOs dictators. They can be, but that is not how we want to behave. And so going into your customers and going, I'm taking away all your admin rights, suck it up, you're going to get over it. That is the rule signed by the dictator, and I'm out. That doesn't go over well. It creates animosity. Helping our customers understand that, a significant percentage of breaches happen because people have powers and credentials that they shouldn't, and that we're really protecting them from themselves, including taking away the CEO's credentials, is part of the game. And it's part of helping them understand that we do it for their good, not for ours.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's a twofold change. It's a change internally, and that's the big one.
Yeah.
Externally is just being able to tell the story.
Yeah. I apologize for how dumb this question is, but give us a synopsis here. I mean, for those who they didn't take notes early enough, and now they've pulled over because this got so profound and they want this to wash over them. On the external side, the practical piece of decommoditizing, or if maybe you're stuck on the fence and you feel yourself getting pulled into the commoditization route of the channel, what are those practical things? You talked about process, you talked about standardization, but take us there.
At the end, it's really sitting down and figuring out how you're different. And if you're not different enough, doubling down on something that will make you stand out and make you different. And that might be a process, might be a tech stack, but I doubt it. I say it might be a tech stack because there's somebody out there whose MSP is built on Google Workspace, and you, sir, are not a commodity because you're one in 100 that that actually approves and encourages that. But this is a great example. And there's some dental MSPs who have great relationships with the folks over at Dentrix, or one of the tools that you really understand an industry or a niche, and you've built your business around it. Those are things that are real differentiators, and you know who your ideal client profile is, and they can pick you out of a crowd.
Yeah.
If your ideal client can't pick you out of a crowd, then you have to be really noisy with your message, and you have to have a clear message that says, this is how I'm different. And Brian, I'm going to use you as an example. You named your business after the thing that makes you different. I want to pick you out of a crowd. How do I pick out of the crowd a sales guy who doesn't make me feel gross, who doesn't make me feel like I'm pushing used cars? I want a salesman that makes me feel good. Okay, I'm going to go buy Brian's product, right? It's subconscious. I don't even have to think about it. And as an MSP, it's harder because we can't go name ourselves the suck less MSP. But that's really who we want to be. We want to create a less, there's always going to be friction in technology.
There's no rule that you couldn't do that. Just there's technically no rule that you couldn't.
Right.
No. Right. Anyway, I got a guy. Well, systems. Shout out to Kevin. Systems and Smiles in the UK. Love it.
Yeah.
And he backs it up with his message, with his brand, with his user experience, and he's freaking popular. And
people know the difference between that guy and nerdy IT guy in mom's basement, right? Yeah. And so that's a perfect example. But I think that at the end of the day, what we really are saying is, not only do you have to know what differentiates you, but you have to be able to tell the story. The storytelling is powerful. And my favorite words in a new prospect conversation are, I have an existing client who was going through the same thing, and
you're right.
Just tell the story. Because now they say it buys me authority, and they say, oh, this guy's not a jerk, man. He's actually worked somebody through this process already, and he can tell me how it worked, and probably even has a reference for me and could get me to talk to somebody. That is so powerful because it says I understand where my value lands with a prospect or a customer.
Oh, it's so amazing, man. When we started talking, I know we'd get into something exciting, but I'm glad that I feel like there's some real roadmap stuff in here. So sincere thanks, Alex. You're such a resource to me. And if you're not too bashful, I'll say that, when I started with Feel Good, I was able to connect with Alex because we met at a conference last year, and you've been a great sort of big brother in some ways, if you don't mind my saying. Just like you gave me your cell number and you let me ask you some questions, and I've texted you like 7 at night and been like, I don't know what to do about this, and you're like, I'm driving, and then an hour later you're like, oh, this is what I would do. So,
well,
anyway,
I'll tell you, as we're wrapping up, I'll tell it like this. When I was building this little thing called Lifecycle Insights, a couple of people had that impact on me. And I just believe in pay it forward. Like there is, I'll take anybody's call. Like if you have a question about your business and you need a hand, like find me on LinkedIn, Alex J. Farling. There's not a lot of us, but at the end of the day, I think this industry is better when we come together, when we try and help each other dodge some of the potholes that we've already run across. And Adam Slutskin, Wes Spencer, Colin Knox. Those are guys who helped me when I was building a product, and I didn't know him from anybody. I didn't know Adam from Adam. And I remember the night that I called Adam Slutskin for the first time. Somebody introduced us, and I'm driving through Eastern Shore, Maryland, middle of podunk nowhere, and I just know when I get across this road, my cell service is going to die. So I pulled over on the side of the road, still talking on hands free, texting my fiance, going, "I'm going to be late tonight because I'm on a phone call I cannot hang up on because it's just too good, and I'll be there when I get there." And I sat on the side of the road for 45 minutes and talked to this guy who helped me understand vendor math and how to back your way into how much do you have to charge for your product across the MSP space to be able to build a successful vendor. And he's just spitting knowledge bombs. And I'm like, I can't hang up on this, right? Yeah. So if I can give that back to somebody, like that's life goals right here. That's so I'm cool. Happy to help. So, and that goes for anybody listening. Like, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, you heard it here. Alex will answer every single one of your questions immediately.
And so
no
will Brian.
Who you are.
And so
yeah,
we're building
my internet's been spotty lately, so I might not catch them all. No, listen, man. Thank you so much. I've kept you for more than enough time. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, I'll have the links to your stuff. But how do they why should somebody reach out to you and how do they get a hold of you?
Well, LinkedIn is absolutely the best way. Alex J. Farling on LinkedIn. And reach out to me if you feel like you're building an MSP and you've got some struggles and you're trying to figure out how to educate your way through what next steps look like. We're building the industry's first vendor agnostic education platform at Empath, and I think we're really onto something.
Yeah, I know you are, and you're gonna continue to be a resource for the whole community as a whole. So again, thanks so much, Alex, and for the listeners, thanks for sticking around with us. We'll see you at the next one.
Thanks for having me, Brian. We'll do it again soon.